In September 2025, one of the richest men on planet Earth walked into a small handbag store in Shanghai. His name is Bernard Arnault, the king of the luxury world, the man who owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany, and more than 70 of the most famous brands in existence. But this store wasn't his. It belonged to a young Chinese brand that most Americans have never heard of. And here's the twist that sent shockwaves through the fashion world. This tiny brand is part of a wave that is quietly destroying his empire's sales. So why was he there? That's the billion-dollar question. So what is this brand? Hold that question, because the answer only makes sense once you understand the war it was born into. What I can tell you now is this. It was founded by a mom recovering from postpartum depression. Its first bags were hand-sewn by a team of grandmothers in a rural village. And today, it is quietly outgrowing luxury, houses 100 times its age. By the end of this video, you'll know its name, its full story, and exactly why the most powerful man in luxury walked into its store. Because this isn't just about handbags. It's about the biggest power shift luxury has seen in 50 years. First, you need to understand who Bernard Arnault really is, because his presence in that store means far more than an ordinary shopping trip. Arnault is not a designer. He's not an artist. He is a ruthless dealmaker, an empire builder, a man Wall Street nicknamed the Wolf in Cashmere. Over 4 decades, he assembled LVMH, the largest luxury conglomerate in history. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, Bulgari, Tiffany, Dom Perignon, Sephora, around 75 legendary brands under one roof, an empire worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And here's the crucial thing about the Wolf in Cashmere. He built that empire by hunting. Arnault's playbook has been the same for 40 years. He identifies a brand with heritage, momentum, or magic. He studies it quietly, and then he strikes, acquiring it and plugging it into the LVMH machine. He fought a brutal war to take Gucci and lost. He swallowed Bulgari. He captured Tiffany for nearly $16 billion, the biggest luxury deal ever. When Bernard Arnault walks into your store, it is never, ever just shopping. To grasp how unusual that Shanghai stroll was, you need Arnault's origin story. He didn't inherit a fashion house. He was an engineer from an industrial family in northern France who, in the 1980s, heard that the bankrupt textile group that owned Christian Dior was for sale. He maneuvered his way into control of it, stripped it down, and kept the crown jewel, Dior. From that single audacious deal, he spent 4 decades stacking acquisition upon acquisition until he had built the most valuable luxury empire in human history. And the machine he built is ruthless in its brilliance. When LVMH acquires a brand, it doesn't just collect it. It supercharges it. Prime real estate on the world's most expensive shopping streets, celebrity ambassadors, marketing budgets no independent house can match, and pricing power that turns heritage into profit margins. Tiffany, dusty and drifting when he bought it, was reborn within a few years as a glittering cash machine. That is what makes his interest in any young brand so consequential. His attention alone changes a company's fate. Now for the other side of this story, because the timing of that visit is everything. For decades, China was the golden goose of Western luxury. Newly wealthy Chinese consumers lined up around the block for Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci belts. At the peak, Chinese shoppers drove roughly 1/3 of all global luxury spending. Brands like LVMH built their growth forecasts, their stores, and their stock prices on one assumption: China's appetite for European logos would grow forever. And then it didn't. Around 2024 and 2025, something broke. China's property crisis and economic slowdown made even wealthy consumers cautious. Youth unemployment rattled confidence, and a new mood took hold. Flashing a giant European logo started to feel tone-deaf, even embarrassing. The Chinese luxury market that Western brands depended on contracted sharply, roughly 20% by some industry estimates. LVMH sales in Asia slumped, and its stock price shed hundreds of billions in value from its peak. The golden goose had stopped laying golden eggs. But here's what most Western coverage missed. Chinese consumers didn't stop buying beautiful things. They just started buying different beautiful things. A powerful cultural wave called Guochao, meaning national trend or China chic, swept through the country's younger generations. Suddenly, heritage wasn't something you imported from Paris. It was something you rediscovered at home. Chinese craftsmanship, Chinese aesthetics, Chinese stories. Local brands that once seemed second-rate became badges of sophistication and pride. The money didn't vanish. It changed direction. So where was the brand from that Shanghai store born? Not in a Paris atelier, and not in a corporate boardroom. In 2013, in Beijing, an office worker had a problem that millions of women will recognize instantly. Her name is Fu Song. She had just returned to work after giving birth. She was commuting every day, carrying a laptop, and she could not find a single bag that was professional, functional, and actually beautiful. Everything was either a clunky tech bag or a delicate purse that couldn't survive real life. Remember her name. It's a clue. But there was a deeper struggle behind that simple problem. Fu Song was battling postpartum depression, and in her lowest period, she reached for the one thing that had always steadied her: design. She had built her career as a product designer, eventually serving as a design director on user experience at Google. Now she poured that energy into a sketch, a functional, elegant tote bag in deep emerald green. A bag built for a real woman's real day. It was therapy first and a business second. Actually, it wasn't supposed to be a business at all. This is where the story becomes something out of a movie. To turn the sketch into a physical bag, Fu Song didn't hire a factory. She turned to her own family. Her mother, Fu Yulan, was a skilled traditional seamstress. Her grandmother was a local craftswoman in Wanrong, a rural county in Shaanxi province, a master of a tiger head hat-making technique officially recognized as part of China's intangible cultural heritage. 3 generations of women, hand-stitching one green bag at a kitchen table. That bag was the seed of everything. When Fu Song carried her handmade bag to work, something unexpected happened. Colleagues stopped her in hallways. Friends demanded one. Orders piled up faster than one family could sew. She had accidentally discovered a gaping hole in the market. Millions of urban working women wanted exactly what she wanted: function and beauty in one object, and nobody was serving them. The side project had product-market fit before she even knew to call it that. Now, they had a different problem. How do you scale a kitchen table? The answer became the most beautiful part of this entire story. Fu Song's mother went back to her hometown in Shaanxi and recruited a production team of grandmothers, senior craftswomen, averaging 65 years old, many of whom had sewn their whole lives, became the brand's original workforce. They were known, internally and eventually publicly, as the Granny Team. While Western luxury brands paid agencies millions to manufacture stories of heritage and craftsmanship, this young brand had the real thing: actual grandmothers in an actual village, stitching bags with skills passed down for generations. And here's a detail that tells you everything about how this company thinks. As the company grew and moved its main production to modern factories that meet international luxury standards, it didn't discard the Granny Team. It transitioned them into something new: the brand's dedicated after-sales repair unit. Today, when a customer's beloved bag needs fixing, it may be repaired by the same generation of hands that founded the craft. In an industry obsessed with newness, it built its soul around longevity, repair, and respect for its elders. Try finding that in a corporate playbook. The final piece of the founding team arrived in the form of Wang Jie, a professor at China's Central Academy of Fine Arts and the designer of the official sports icons for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. He joined as co-founder and took command of the brand's visual identity, its cultural curation, and the design of its retail spaces, which are built to evoke the mountains, timber, and temple architecture of central China. With him, the brand gained something money can't easily buy: genuine artistic authority rooted in Chinese culture. So what makes the products themselves special? This is where Fu Song's Google background changes the game entirely. Most fashion brands design by trend. What's hot this season, what celebrities are wearing, what's sold last year. Fu Song rejected all of that. She treats a handbag the way a Silicon Valley team treats an app, as a functional device that must solve the user's daily problems. Every one of their bags begins not with a mood board, but with a scenario: a commute, a laptop, a shoulder that aches by 5 p.m. Her design philosophy runs on 3 pillars that sound more like a tech company than a fashion house. First, scenario-based design. Every dimension, pocket, and strap is engineered around the real routines of urban women: padded laptop compartments, ergonomic weight distribution, pockets you can actually reach. Second, continuous iteration. Like software updates, existing bags are quietly improved, version after version, based on customer feedback. Third, first principles thinking. Strip the bag down to its essential functions, remove excess decoration, and invest everything in structure and material quality. The results are genuinely clever. Take the Luna bag, the brand's global bestseller, inspired by the phases of the moon. It transforms between two different structural shapes and can be carried four ways: shoulder bag, crossbody, handheld, or clutch. And the mechanism that makes this possible is pure poetry. It's adapted from sunmao, the ancient Chinese mortise and tenon joinery technique that has held together wooden temples for over 1,000 years without a single nail. Ancient carpentry wisdom, reborn as luxury hardware, in stainless steel engineered to resist were 30 times better than standard plating. Or take the Drippa collection, whose distinctive curved silhouette is drawn directly from the sweeping roofline of Nanshan Temple in Shaanxi, the oldest surviving wooden building in all of China, standing for more than 1,200 years. The leather is stretched over specialized molds to achieve that soft, porcelain-like curve, a shape that quietly echoes the ceramics of the Song dynasty. Think about what that means. An ordinary customer walking to work is carrying 12 centuries of architectural heritage on her shoulder. That is storytelling no marketing department can fake. The lineup extends beyond those icons. Their commuter bucket bag hides an O-shaped support ring in its opening, so the mouth of the bag stays reliably open when you reach in, while the body stays soft against your side. A removable canvas organizer keeps the chaos of daily life sorted. None of these ideas is flashy. All of them are the kind of detail you only get when designers obsess over how a bag is actually used at 7 a.m. on a crowded train. This approach, quiet, functional, deeply cultural, landed at the perfect moment. Because the global luxury mood was shifting toward what the industry calls quiet luxury. Understated pieces, no screaming logos, quality you feel rather than show. The old model of logomania, where a bag's entire value was the monogram printed on it, was fading. And this brand, with its clean lines and hidden depths, was accidentally perfectly positioned for the new era. What Chinese consumers embraced first, American and European tastemakers were beginning to crave too. You've now seen the whole story. The grandmothers, the 1,200-year-old temple rooflines, the Google gray design process, the quiet elegance. So it's finally time for the name. The brand Bernard Arnault walked into that day in Shanghai is called Songmot. In China, it's known as Shanxia Yuzong, meaning there are pines below the mountain. Song is the Mandarin word for pine tree, and an echo of the founder's own name, Fusong. Mont is Latin for mountain, a pine growing steady at the foot of a mountain. Patience, resilience, quiet strength. Now you know the name. Here's how big it has become. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where the story stops being charming and starts being terrifying for the competition. Between 2021 and 2025, Songmot grew sales at a compound annual rate of 59%. For comparison, Coach, one of the global kings of accessible luxury, grew around 13% on the same Chinese platforms over that period. Songmot wasn't just growing faster than the incumbents. It was growing more than 4 times faster year after year, compounding like a freight train. In its most recent fiscal year, Songmot's gross merchandise value hit 1.3 billion yuan, roughly $179 million, making it the #1 domestic bag and accessories brand on Tmall, China's biggest shopping platform. And here's the stat that should make every luxury executive sweat. Its sales reportedly equaled the second and third place domestic competitors combined. 85% of sales come from online channels, a digital-first model that keeps costs lean while legacy brands pay rent on marble flagships. And the growth isn't coming from discounting, the usual trick of brands chasing volume. It's the opposite. Songmot's average order value climbed from around 1,600 yuan to 2,200, meaning customers are paying more per purchase as the brand moves up market. Meanwhile, the annual repeat purchase rate rose to 42%. Nearly half of customers come back within a year. In an industry where loyalty is bought with sales and coupons, Songmot built it with product quality and meaning. That is the kind of metric acquirers dream about. Then there's the loyalty program, which might be the smartest piece of business design in this whole story. Instead of the usual free points and discount scheme, Songmont launched a paid membership club called the Golden Pine Society, $25 a year. And instead of discounts, which cheapen a luxury brand, members get access. There's an entire hidden product line, Songmont Select, that is literally invisible on the store for non-members. Points are redeemed not for price cuts, but for functional leather goods like luggage tags. Exclusivity, engineered like a software feature. Study that move for a second, because it's a masterclass. A paid membership does 3 things at once. It generates revenue from your biggest fans. It filters for the customers who care most, over 200,000 active members and counting. And psychologically, it flips the relationship. Instead of the brand chasing the customer with discounts, the customer pays for the privilege of getting closer to the brand. Amazon proved this logic with Prime. Costco built an empire on it. Songmont brought it to luxury handbags. There's also a structural advantage hiding in plain sight. These brands are children of the most advanced e-commerce ecosystem on Earth. China shoppers live inside Tmall, Douyin, and livestream commerce, where a brand can launch, test, and iterate products with brutal speed and almost no physical overhead. Songmont earning 85% of its sales online isn't a limitation. It's a weapon. While legacy luxury pays for marble palaces on Fifth Avenue, digital native challengers convert culture into sales at the speed of a live stream. Songmont isn't alone, and that's exactly what makes this a movement rather than a fluke. Consider Laopu Gold, the Chinese jeweler crafting gold pieces with imperial-era techniques, whose stores have lines around the block, and whose stock became one of the hottest listings in Hong Kong. Young Chinese consumers who once saved for Cartier and now save for Laopu. Across categories, beauty, jewelry, fashion, tea, a generation of Chinese brands is doing the unthinkable, beating Western luxury at the very game the West invented. Which brings us back to that September day in Shanghai, and the man in the perfectly tailored suit. Bernard Arnault didn't just visit his own struggling flagships on that China trip. He was seen at Laopu Gold, and he was seen at Songmont, browsing, reportedly even buying. The internet lit up instantly. Chinese social media crowned it a cultural victory, the emperor of European luxury, shopping at local brands. Western analysts read it differently. The wolf in Cashmere was walking the aisles of his newest competitors, or his newest targets. So what was Arnault actually doing? Let's be clear about the facts. As of today, there is no announced deal, no confirmed acquisition, no official bid for Songmont. Anyone telling you LVMH bought Songmont is ahead of the truth. But here's what we do know from 40 years of history. Bernard Arnault studies before he strikes. He toured American malls before buying Tiffany. He obsessed over Italian craftsmanship before capturing Bulgari and Fendi. The wolf always walks the territory first, and now he's walked Songmont's floor in person. Put yourself in his shoes because his dilemma is fascinating. Option 1. Try to acquire brands like Songmont and buy your way into the Guochao wave. But will they even sell? Songmont's entire identity is proud Chinese independence. Being swallowed by a French conglomerate could destroy the very authenticity that makes it valuable. Option 2. Copy the playbook, quieter designs, deeper cultural storytelling, digital-first retail. But heritage can't be faked on a deadline. Option 3. Wait and watch these brands go global and start hunting on your home turf. To be fair, Songmont's path is not guaranteed either. Going global means facing risks it has never confronted. Western consumers who don't know the cultural references, copycats cloning its designs at half the price, the brutal cost of physical retail abroad, and the challenge of keeping quality sacred while scaling fast. Plenty of hot brands have burned out crossing borders. The grandmother's stitching travels well. Whether the story translates in an American mall is the next great test, and nobody knows the answer yet. Because make no mistake, they are coming. Songmont has already opened its first international boutiques, stepping carefully into markets like Southeast Asia and beyond, and its digital storefront uses Shopify's infrastructure, the same backbone as countless American direct-to-consumer brands, built for global scale from day one. The question isn't whether ambitious Chinese luxury brands will arrive in New York and Los Angeles. It's when, and whether Western consumers will greet them the way Chinese consumers once greeted Louis Vuitton, lined up around the block. Consider the timeline, because it's almost disrespectful. Louis Vuitton has spent roughly 170 years building its legend. Hermes has nearly 2 centuries behind its craftsmanship. Songmont went from a single hand-sewn green tote at a kitchen table to the #1 domestic bag brand on China's biggest marketplace in about 12 years. Whatever you believe about heritage, the market just demonstrated that meaning can now be built in a decade if the story is true and the product delivers. That should thrill every entrepreneur and terrify every incumbent. For American viewers, here's why this matters to you even if you never buy a handbag. First, this is a preview of a broader economic story. Chinese companies moving up the value chain, from making products for Western brands to beating Western brands at branding itself. It happened in electronics with phones and EVs. Luxury was supposed to be the West's untouchable fortress, centuries of heritage as the moat. If that moat can be crossed in 12 years by a mom with a sketchbook, no industry is safe. Second, your own shopping culture is already shifting in Songmont's direction. The quiet luxury trend that dominates American fashion conversation, buy less, buy better, skip the logo, is exactly the lane these brands were built for. Coach and Michael Kors taught a generation of Americans accessible luxury. The next generation may learn it from brands whose stories involve temple rooflines and grandmother repair teams. In a market starved for authenticity, the most authentic story usually wins, no matter which country it comes from. Now let's extract the money lessons because this story is packed with them. Lesson 1. Solve a real problem, and the market will find you. Songmont did not begin as a billion-yuan ambition. It began as one woman's unsolved daily frustration, a laptop bag that didn't force her to choose between function and beauty. The most valuable businesses in the world consistently start this way, not with a market analysis, but with a founder who personally feels a pain that millions of others silently share. Lesson 2. Authenticity is the one asset money can't manufacture. LVMH can outspend Songmont 1,000 to 1 on advertising. What it cannot buy is a real grandmother team in a real Shaanxi village, a founder whose origin story involves genuine struggle, or 1,200 years of temple architecture woven honestly into a product. In an age where consumers can smell manufactured marketing instantly, true stories compound in value. If you're building anything, a business, a brand, a career, your real story is worth more than a borrowed one. Lesson 3. Treat your product like software, even if it's leather. Songmont's iteration loop, ship, listen, improve, repeat came straight from Google, and it's devastating in an industry that traditionally designs twice a year and praise. Whatever field you're in, the compounding advantage goes to whoever learns from customers fastest. Lesson 4. Charge your best customers for closeness, not discounts. The Golden Pine Society model, paid membership, hidden products, functional rewards, builds fanatical loyalty while protecting your brand's value. Discounts rent customers. Belonging keeps them. Lesson 5. And this one is for investors. Watch where the smart money physically walks. Bernard Arnault's stores were struggling in China, and instead of just reading reports in Paris, the 70-something billionaire flew to Shanghai and walked his competitors' floors himself. That is why he's the wolf. When an industry king personally scouts an upstart, it tells you where value is migrating years before any deal is announced. The visit itself was information. For those paying attention, it was practically a stock tip. There's also a warning in this story, a lesson from the other side of the table. LVMH's China troubles show what happens when even the mightiest empire mistakes a golden era for a permanent condition. For 20 years, the strategy of more stores, more logos, more China worked so well that questioning it felt absurd. Then the culture shifted in barely 3 years, and hundreds of billions in market value evaporated. Every business and every investor should ask regularly, which of my winning assumptions has quietly become my biggest risk? So, will Bernard Arnault try to buy Songmont? Here's my honest read. A direct acquisition would be explosive news, but it faces a poetic obstacle. Songmont's value is its independence, its Chineseness, its authenticity. The moment it becomes a French conglomerate's subsidiary, the Guochao halo dims. Arnault knows this better than anyone. He spent decades learning which brands survive acquisition and which wilt. More likely, we see partnerships, minority investments, or LVMH incubating its own China heritage plays. But the wolf has walked the floor, and the wolf has a long memory. Whatever happens next, one thing is already certain. The luxury world's center of gravity is shifting. For a century, the flow ran one direction: European heritage, sold to the world at a premium. Songmont, Laopu Gold, and the Guochao generation have proven the flow can reverse. A bag inspired by a Tang Dynasty temple can outcompete a bag inspired by a Paris atelier on quality, on story, and on meaning. The empire built by the wolf in Cashmere now has to compete with grandmothers in Shanxi. And honestly, the grandmothers are winning. The next chapter of this story is being written right now. Songmont is expanding globally. LVMH is recalibrating its China strategy. Analysts are watching every quarterly report for signs of who adapts fastest. And somewhere in Paris, the most successful luxury dealmaker in history is deciding what to do about a handbag brand born at a kitchen table in Beijing. When that decision becomes public, whatever it is, you'll understand exactly what it means because you now know the whole story behind that quiet shopping trip in Shanghai. If this story surprised you and taught you something about money, power, and the value of a true story, then this channel is exactly where you belong. We break down the biggest money stories on the planet. The empires, the upstarts, the crashes, and the quiet power shifts nobody notices until it's too late. Subscribe to Money Stories, ring the bell, and tell me in the comments. If you were Bernard Arnault, would you try by Songmont, copy it, or compete with it? See you in the next one.